Here we go. Are you having a good time already tonight? We're right here in the beautiful state of Florida tonight. How many of you'd rather be here than the best hospital in the whole world? Come on, make some noise. I came in back here a few minutes ago and this pretty lady walks up to me. She said, "Johnny, you look like $1 million." I said, "Honey, you ain't never seen $1 million before." She said, "That's right, you look like something I ain't never seen before." But the other night I was doing a show, halfway through the show, a fella jumped up in the back and says, "I can't hear you." The fella in the front jumped up and said, "I can, you want to trade seats?" Woo! Then I spoke at a big banquet the other day. I did the after dinner speech. And boy, they gave us some food. I got up there and I was full, I tell you. And I got up on the mic and I said, "You know what? If I'd have took one more bite of food, I don't believe I could get up here and make this speech tonight." Fella jumped up and said, "Give that boy a sandwich." But for breakfast this morning, hey, I stopped and I had me some sausage gravy and biscuits and some big old hunks of ham and some scrambled eggs. And this old fella walks over to me and he says, "Hey boy, don't you know you eating that stuff right there, it'll harden up your arteries?" I said, "Well, my granddaddy lived till he was 96 years old." He said, "From eating that junk?" I said, "No, from minding his own business." Well, I live here in Florida. We got some strange weather, don't we? We had that big long dry spell last summer. Remember that long dry spell? It got bad, I'm telling you. The Baptist was sprinkling. The Methodist was using a damp wash rag. And the Presbyterians was giving out rain checks. It was bad. And then we get in that few weeks where it don't do nothing but rain every day. I mean, it rained so much back home we had to jack the cows up to milk them. It got bad. I tell you what though, the other day I got to ride in a limousine for the first time. I don't know if you ever done such a thing as that. And I got in that limousine and we went down through the main street of my little town and I pulled the roof back and I stood up in that roof and I was just yelling and waving and hollering at everybody in town. My mom and dad said that's the last time they taken me to a funeral. Oh yeah. And let me ask you this, why do funeral processions go through red lights? What's the hurry? And why do they call dead people late? Hey man, they ain't coming. I was at a big football game right over here in Tampa last year, and I sat down there and there was an empty seat right between us, and there was a nice little old lady sitting there, and I said, "Well, I wonder why this seat's empty." And she said, "Well, that belonged to my husband, but he's died and he's passed on now, but that was his seat, and you know, that's just the way it is." And I said, "Well, honey, why didn't you get a member of your family to come to the ball game and sit with you?" She said, "Well, they're all at the funeral." Well, I noticed the other day my gums were shrinking. Y'all ever have that trouble? My gums were shrinking. Found out I was brushing my teeth with preparation H. And a couple of days ago, I seen this lady, she was crawling across the street. I run over to her, scared me to death. I said, "Honey, you okay? Did you get hit by a car?" And, "Well, what's the problem? What you doing crawling across the street?" She said, "Well, the sign said don't walk." Boy, I meet some doozies, don't I? And I had a birthday recently, and my friends got together and got me a birthday cake, and they put them dumb candles on there. You seen them things that you blow them out, and in a minute or two they light back up? I didn't know there was such a thing. I blowed my brains out trying to get them things out. They go out, and they come back on, go out. Well, I was reading the other day where the factory up north that makes them there candles, it caught on fire. Took them 3 days to put that thing out up there. But I love my dog. He's old now and he falls when I ride him, but He's a pretty good old dog. I come in the other day, and do y'all have trouble with your dog drinking out of the toilet? Mine does. I got onto him the other day. I said, why are you drinking out of the toilet? He looked up at me and said, why are you going to the bathroom in my water bowl? I come home the other day and he was sitting there crying. I said, what you crying for? He said, I broke a mirror. I said, well, that ain't no problem. I'll buy you another mirror. He said, it ain't no problem to you, but to me it's 49 years bad luck. I did get me 3 little puppies the other day, though. 3 new puppies. They're called Thunder, Lightning, and Liberace. Because see, Thunder, he's the loudest. And Lightning, he's the fastest. And Liberace, he's the pianist. Well, since we're talking about dogs, fellas, these women, you know, your girlfriends or your wives, and hopefully you ain't got a girlfriend and a wife. They always wanting something every now and then. Sometimes you just can't get it for them. But I finally solved a problem like that. I had that problem about the girl wanting a present. So here's what happened when I got her this present now. You listen close now to this song. Since all her friends had got one, my girl wants one too. A knee-length fuzzy fur coat, there ain't nothing else gonna do. She said she'd look real classy and make me proud of her if I'd just break down and buy her a fur. Well, that put me to thinking, how am I gonna swing that kind of deal? Lord knows I can't afford it, and I'm too afraid to steal. But the problem finally solved itself like a bolt out of the blue. It jumped right out in front of me on Highway 22. That big old German Shepherd dog, my truck he didn't see. Lord, he's up in dog heaven, but his hide belongs to me. Well, for 2 weeks in the basement, I worked hard late every night. It was mostly trial and error, but I finally got it right. I put it in a cardboard box, and I carried it upstairs to her. Ooh, she was tickled to death to get that fur. Now she's got her fuzzy fur coat, reaches all the way to her knees, but she's been complaining lately that her closet's full of fleas. Well, she don't know Fido is wrapped around her tight. She's putting on the dog when she goes out at night. She don't know Fido is wrapped around her tight. She's really putting on the dog when she goes out at night. Well, she's been awfully depressed here lately since I backed out over the cat. But I think she'll feel much better when I give her this new fur hat. Then every year we go to Bike Week in Daytona, Florida. We bikers. Any bikers here by any chance? Well, not too many. We was over here at Bike Week last time, and this skinny, puny fella sat down up there at the counter, and he turned to the biker next to him. He says, you want to hear a biker joke? That biker said, wait a minute, buddy. I'm 6 foot tall, 200 pounds, and I'm a biker. My friend next to me is 6'2", 220 pounds, and he's a biker. My friend next to him is 6'4", 240 pounds, and he's a biker. Are you sure you want to come in here and tell a biker joke? That skinny, puny fella says, no, I don't want to have to explain it 3 times. Now, we go to Atlanta a bit a lot. The problem with Atlanta is you got to go through Georgia to get there. That's the... And I've been stopped by the police in Atlanta several times. Policeman pulled me over the other day and come walking up there and said, hey, boy, you know how come I pulled you over? I said, well, I figured you caught a glimpse of them Dunkin' Donuts in my windshield there, and that's the wrong thing to say. One cop pulled me over one day because I kind of eased through a stop sign. He went over and said, hey, you didn't stop at that sign. I said, well, I slowed down. What's the difference? He said, but you didn't stop. I said, well, I slowed down. What's the difference? He said, you didn't stop. I said, I slowed down. What's the difference? Well, he pulled his club out of his belt and started hitting me with it. Blam, blam, blam. He says, here's the difference. You want me to slow down or you want me to stop? they stole all the toilets out of the Atlanta Police Department. Did you know that? Stole every toilet out of the police department, and you know what? They ain't got no clues. Now they got nothing to go on. Well, here we go. You know you can pick your friends and you can pick your nose, but you can't wipe your friends on the steering wheel. Did you know that? I used to give my girlfriends nicknames. I had one, I called her Candy Bar. It wasn't because she was sweet, because she was half nuts. But the other girlfriend I had for a while, I called her Booger. Well, after all, I picked her. And you know what? If a policeman pulls you over and walks up there to the car to give you a ticket, you just start picking your nose right there. Because he ain't gonna give you no ticket. He knows you got to use his pen to sign it with. Well, I'm gonna leave you with a sing-along here. You got to sing along with me. You ready? Well, I was sitting in my car, waiting for the light to change, when the guy next to me had his finger up his nose and his face was all deranged. I rolled down my window, I started to chuckle. His finger was buried right up to his knuckle. I can't help but stare because I can't believe what I see. When he pulls it out, it's a picture of pain. On the end of his fingers, a piece of his brain. And with a smile on his face, he flicked it right at me. Sing it with me. Talk about boogers. Talk about boogers. Talk about boogers. You get them every day. Talk about boogers. Talking about boogers. Yeah, them boogers, they're here to stay. They've been flicked on the seat, flung in the air, wiped on the sofa, smeared in the chair. Put them in your pocket, save them for a rainy day. You remember the winter, how cold the wind felt. The boogers would freeze, then they'd melt. But with one big, they'd go away. Talk about boogers. Yeah, talking about boogers. Talking about boogers.